Worlds was pretty crazy. Hey everyone, it's Daunter. I'm a Pokemon card YouTuber who's trying to hit the 800 subscriber mark, and I think I'm doing a pretty good job. We've reached 729 subscribers, which is almost 30%, which is almost 50%, which is almost 100%. So if you're interested in my content, please make sure to leave a subscription to the channel. It would help out massively. I'm back. It's been a couple days since my last video, 4 days exactly. I think that's a pretty good amount of time in terms of a distance. I am finally back from Worlds, and I want to kind of talk about my experience on it. Some positives, maybe like one or two negatives, and then we're just going to kind of get through it. So, of course, let me just get this out of the way. I had fun. Worlds was pretty fun. I don't have I don't have a lot of footage, and I didn't take a lot of pictures because I'm just not that kind of person that takes a lot of pictures. I kind of wish I took a little bit more, but yeah, that's just unfortunate. But whatever, right? How was it? It was fun. I enjoyed myself. I think that it was like nice. It was set up very nicely. Everybody was nice. Like everybody, I don't know, everybody there was pretty kind. Very, very busy, of course. It was just super, super busy. There was tons and tons and tons of people there. And that's, it could be a good thing, could be a bad thing, depending on how anxious you get in those kinds of situations. Me personally, just like pushing through the crowds and stuff like that to get to the vendors was a little bit like tough, just because there was the gaps were a little bit thinner than I would have hoped. So I don't know. So speaking of the vendors, let's get to our first point, which is going to be the vendors. And this is going to be, I don't know, like I think that the vendors overall did pretty good for what they were given, because there was only like six or so vendors there, so there wasn't too many vendors. The cards that they were selling, some of them were pretty cool. But there was a problem that I had with one of the vendors. I'm not exactly sure which one it was, and I don't want to point fingers and lay the blame on someone. But one of the vendors did have a display filled with a bunch of different cards. And I'm someone who like loves to look at the condition of cards before I buy them. Trying to be a little bit more like in depth about it, a little bit more like careful about it. So I'm not just paying like full price for a card that's not nice looking, right? So there was one vendor that had a bunch of cards in a single stack, and they would just kind of like give you one of them. And the way that they stack them is like really, really bad for the cards. Like a lot of the different cards, even modern, like super, super modern, brand new, probably packed fresh cards, had like dents in the corners. They were folded a little bit. They were, they had a lot of whitening on them. I was lucky enough to only have like a tiny bit of whitening on some of my cards, picking out like specific ones, but like giving you a card for like maximum price, like the nicest condition when the card isn't even the nicest condition is a little frustrating and definitely misleading for sure. That was something that I really had a problem with. Honestly, it was a really, really like sad thing, because there's a lot of people that go there, and I'm sure that not everybody's looking at the condition so specifically, right? So that was something that I was just a little bit worried about. I don't think anybody should do that. I don't know. I think there should be some specific rules against stuff like that. Just for the safety of the cards and like the honesty of the vendors. Like you have to really be careful, I guess. And that's just something that's like, generally, like you have to be very careful when you're at those kinds of events, because you don't want to get scammed, right? And same thing with the card prices. Some of the card prices were jacked up ridiculously. We're still on vendors, by the way. But the Umbreon EX from Prismatic Evolutions, the cool one, the one that everybody loves, the card has been dropping very much so recently. It's been dropping all the way down. It's reached like the $800 mark roughly. Even if that's not a perfect amount, this is still ridiculous, right? And another one of the vendors, this is a different one, I'm pretty sure. They had the card listed for $1,100, just raw. That's a lot. It's the $300 markup, which is again pretty scummy, like pretty scammy. I don't know. Like these are just kind of things that like you come to expect when you go to anywhere, right? That sells Pokemon cards. But I feel like even like it's kind of crazy to me that like a Pokemon sponsored like event has stuff like that. Like there's people selling products for like way over MSRP. There's people selling, cards for the not correct price and, not really quality checking them. I don't know. I feel like that's something that could have been a little bit more like contained. I know that it's more like on the vendors than Pokemon themselves, so I'm not going to blame them for that because I don't think that's fair. But just stuff like that is just a little concerning, and I feel like that's something that could, anyone could fall for something like that, right? Um, Moving on to our next like little section here, I'm going to talk about the events. So there was a lot of really cool stuff to witness. If you're a big fan of the Pokemon TCG, Pokemon video games, Pokemon Unite, stuff like that, you probably have a really good time just watching the event. Me personally, I was just like kind of like walking around trying to figure out like what to do, because I'm not too interested in the games in themselves. I'm more interested in like products and different events from Worlds. Unfortunately, I was not selected for any events at all. So any of those like predetermined events, like the meet and greets and stuff like that, I didn't really get to do any of them. Um, and I don't know, it was just like all right, like I didn't make it for any of them, and I think that that's totally okay. And I still had a lot of fun regardless. So I think they did a pretty good job in that sense. Like I didn't feel like I was way too bored or anything, even though I didn't make it to any of the events. It did kind of stink that I wasn't selected for any of them. In the Pokemon Center, I did manage to get in the Pokemon Center, but like it was tough because they had a system where I think one person could go in the Pokemon Center multiple times. So you could have one person going in on Friday, one person going in on like Saturday, and then finally they would go in on Sunday. Right? So they could go in all 3 days, and it wasn't exclusively for people that were going to Worlds, which I don't think is a terrible idea. But the fact that it just like ran out of availability so quickly, like I know that a lot of people weren't able to make it. I just wasn't really a big fan of the fact that one person could go in there on 3 separate days and get a bunch of different what's the point of having one per person kind of like rules if they're not really like exclusive, actually one per person instead of like just having the same person buy things multiple times. Obviously scalping is a really, really huge issue when it comes to the Pokemon Center items. Unfortunately, when I went into the Pokemon Center, they ran out of the binder. That was the only thing I really wanted, unfortunately. I got the backpack, and I was really happy to get the backpack, but the binder was like the one thing that I really, 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 really wanted. So I ended up having to get it on eBay, for $60, and the original price of it is 30. So it really sucked that I wasn't even able to get it. Like I was really sad about that. I came in around like 3 o'clock. And they were all gone. I mean, maybe that's just on me for getting there so late, right? But at the same time, like I really would have hoped that they would have enough product for everyone, to go around. I mean, like especially considering the fact that I just want one binder. Like I'm totally fine with it being one per person, but I just wanted like one binder, one pair of the world's exclusive sleeves, and like I just couldn't, and that just sucks, right? But it is what it is, right? So yeah, that was pretty much most of the stuff that I wanted to talk about. Worlds is good. I enjoyed my stay. I stayed at a hotel that was not too far from it, so I didn't really have to worry about parking. That was nice. It was really, really fun though. Like there was a lot of stuff to do, trades and stuff like that. I used my trade binder a lot. Picked up a couple of new cards that I was really happy to pick up. I picked up the Pokemon Ranger full art from Steam Siege for around like $8, in pretty good condition. And then I also picked up the Drayton SAR from Surging Sparks for like $12. That's pretty good. And I like that card a lot, so I'm happy to pick it up for like almost sub $10. And then we also had the Unknown End Secret Rare from Unseen Forces. I picked it up in like a moderately played, kind of like heavily played condition because it was only $10, so that was a pretty good price. And then finally, I picked up the Spide Ops, the Team Rocket Spide Ops illustration rare from Destined Rivals for like $8, so I was happy about that. And yeah, I was pretty happy with my pickups, pretty happy with my trades. Overall, it was just like a great time. And I would totally want to go back to the next one. Anyways, that's my little experience on Worlds. There were some reveals at the end of Worlds, but on Sunday, I ended up leaving a little bit earlier, so I didn't actually get to see those reveals. But I saw them already. Like I know what they are. So upcoming videos probably going to be talking about the new Pokemon Pocket Set as well as the new cards revealed. Anyways, hope you guys have a fantastic day, and I will see you in the next time. Peace.